The white Renault L90 moved through evening traffic on Pasteran Avenue. August 7th, 2020, 9 o'clock, Tehran time. The air was warm, the streets busy with commuters heading home through one of the Iranian capital's wealthiest neighborhoods. Behind the wheel sat a middle-aged man with graying hair, his daughter beside him in the passenger seat. To anyone watching, they looked like a typical father and daughter finishing their day. But nothing about this man was typical. His real name was Abdullah Ahmed Abdullah, though he went by Abu Muhammad al-Masri. He was Al-Qaeda's number 2. The architect behind the 1998 American embassy bombings that killed 224 people and wounded more than 4,000. He'd been on the FBI's most wanted list for 22 years with a $10 million bounty on his head. And tonight, exactly 22 years to the day after those embassy attacks in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam, he was about to pay for every single one of those deaths. Behind the Renault, a red motorcycle wove through traffic. 2 figures in dark clothing, their faces covered. The driver's movements were fluid, practiced, the kind of precision that comes from extensive training. The passenger's right hand rested near his waist, close to something concealed beneath his jacket. They'd been tracking the Renault for the past 15 minutes, maintaining distance, timing their approach for this exact intersection where traffic thinned and escape routes multiplied. Abdullah had no idea they were there. IRGC surveillance was supposed to protect him. The Revolutionary Guards had monitored his movements for years, kept him safe under their arrangement. He had lived in Tehran since 2003, 17 years under Iranian protection. The deal was simple: sanctuary in exchange for intelligence, cooperation, staying quiet. He'd followed the rules. He thought that made him untouchable. He was wrong. The motorcycle accelerated, pulling alongside the Renault's driver's side. Abdullah glanced left, probably saw the 2 figures, probably didn't process the threat until the passenger's hand moved. The suppressed pistol came up smooth and fast. 5 shots in rapid succession through the driver window, each round placed with surgical precision. The sound was muffled, barely audible over Tehran's evening traffic. 3 rounds struck Abdullah in the head and chest. The other 2 hit Mariam, his daughter. Hamza bin Laden's widow, a woman being groomed for Al-Qaeda leadership herself. Both died instantly. The motorcycle accelerated away, the driver navigating side streets toward Quds Square, avoiding the CCTV angles they'd mapped during months of surveillance. The entire hit took 8 seconds from first shot to escape. By the time the first witnesses reached the Renault, the assassins were gone, vanished into Tehran's sprawl like smoke in wind. Iranian police arrived within minutes, cordoning off the intersection, securing the scene. Confusion spread immediately. Who were these victims? Local authorities checked identification documents found in the car. The name that came back: Habib Daoud, Lebanese history professor, and his daughter Mariam. Iranian state media ran with the story. Semi-official news agency Fars reported the shooting, repeated the Lebanese professor narrative, mentioned possible Hezbollah connections. The Revolutionary Guards affiliated Lebanese MTV channel confirmed the same details. But Habib Daoud didn't exist. The identity was a cover, a fiction created by Iranian intelligence to hide the truth about who really lived in their capital. The real victim was Abu Muhammad al-Masri, Al-Qaeda's second-in-command, one of the most wanted terrorists on earth. And the assassins who killed him were Israeli Mossad operatives from Kidon, the elite unit known as the tip of the spear. Iran couldn't admit that. Admitting it meant acknowledging that Al-Qaeda leadership operated from Tehran. Admitting it meant confessing that Mossad hit teams moved freely through their capital, executing operations under IRGC's nose. Admitting it meant exposing the most catastrophic counterintelligence failure in Iranian history. So they lied. For 3 months, the lie held. The world heard about a Lebanese professor killed in a random shooting. Iranian authorities claimed no leads, no suspects, no arrests. Al-Qaeda stayed silent, which was telling in itself. Western intelligence agencies monitored the intercepts, watched Al-Qaeda's command structure scramble, saw the panic spreading through their networks. But publicly, everyone played along with Iran's fiction. Then, in late August, a small Afghanistan-based news outlet called Shamshad News published a different story. According to their sources, the victim wasn't Habib Daoud at all. It was Abu Muhammad al-Masri, Al-Qaeda's operations chief. The report appeared and vanished quickly, barely noticed in the international media. Iran dismissed it as conspiracy theory, Western propaganda, the usual accusations. Most news organizations ignored it, but intelligence agencies didn't ignore it. CIA confirmed what they already knew. Mossad said nothing, which was confirmation enough. And in November 2020, 3 months after the assassination, the New York Times broke the full story. The victim was Abdullah Ahmed Abdullah. The assassins were Israeli operatives, and the operation had been carried out at the explicit request of the United States government. Before we go deeper into this story, I want to let you know what this channel is about. We bring you real spy stories every single day. Not Hollywood fiction, but actual operations, genuine tradecraft, the real human cost behind the headlines. These are the missions that shaped history, the operations that changed the intelligence game, the assassinations that eliminated terrorist leaders and nuclear threats. If you're fascinated by the shadow world of espionage and covert action, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what you're about to hear, the details of how Mossad executed this hit, why the U.S. wanted it done, and what it reveals about the secret war between Israel and Iran, that's just the beginning. And real quick, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below with your city and country. It's always amazing to see how far these spy stories reach across the globe. Are you listening from Washington, Tel Aviv, London, Dubai? Let me know. Now back to Tehran and the man who just died on Pasdaran Avenue. To understand why Abdullah Ahmed Abdullah had to die, you have to understand what he'd done 22 years earlier. August 7th, 1998. 2 American embassies in East Africa, Nairobi, Kenya, and Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. 2 nearly simultaneous truck bomb explosions that ripped through both compounds, killing 224 people and wounding more than 4,000. The Nairobi bombing alone killed 213 people and injured roughly 4,000, most of them Kenyan civilians who happened to be near the embassy when the bomb detonated. In Dar es Salaam, 12 people died and 85 were wounded. Abdullah planned those attacks. He coordinated the operational cells, supervised the logistics, arranged for fake passports that allowed the bombers to travel, personally scouted the Kenyan embassy 3 days before the bombing. He was Al-Qaeda's operations planner, the man who turned bin Laden's strategic vision into tactical reality. After the attacks, he fled to Karachi, Pakistan, then eventually to Afghanistan. The FBI indicted him along with Osama bin Laden and 20 others for the embassy bombings. His face appeared on the most wanted terrorists list. The State Department offered $10 million for information leading to his capture. But Abdullah was more than just the embassy bomber. He'd been with Al-Qaeda since its inception in 1988, one of the original members who fought the Soviets in Afghanistan. He served on bin Laden's consultative council, the Majlis al-Shura, the inner circle that made strategic decisions. Intelligence analysts believed he'd provided money to Mohammed Atta, the lead hijacker in the September 11th attacks. He'd trained Somali militants who attacked U.S. forces in Mogadishu in 1993. His expertise wasn't just operational planning. It was building networks, forging alliances, creating the infrastructure that allowed Al-Qaeda to operate globally. He was, in the assessment of Western intelligence agencies, Al-Qaeda's most experienced and capable operational strategist. Ayman al-Zawahiri might have been the public face of the organization after bin Laden's death, but Abdullah was the engine that made operations possible. And after September 11th, 2001, when the United States invaded Afghanistan and destroyed Al-Qaeda's safe haven, Abdullah fled to the one place American forces couldn't reach, Iran. The relationship between Iran and Al-Qaeda has always been complicated, almost paradoxical. On paper, they're ideological enemies. Iran is a Shiite theocracy. Al-Qaeda is a Sunni jihadist organization. They've fought proxy wars across the Middle East, backed opposing sides in Syria, targeted each of its allies. The sectarian divide between Shiite and Sunni Islam runs deep, sometimes violently so. But in the world of intelligence and terrorism, ideology takes a back seat to mutual interest. And Iran and Al-Qaeda shared one overwhelming mutual interest: opposition to the United States and its allies. In late 2001, as American forces overran Al-Qaeda's camps in Afghanistan, senior operative Mustafa Hamid negotiated with Iranian officials to relocate Al-Qaeda members' families to Iran. 2 Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps officers escorted Hamid and another senior Al-Qaeda member, Abu Hafs, the Mauritanian, to Tehran for meetings. The IRGC became Al-Qaeda's point of contact, facilitating the transfer of fighters and family members across the border. Zawahiri himself, through his longtime relationship with Ahmad Vahidi, then head of the IRGC's Quds Force, helped secure sanctuary for Al-Qaeda operatives trapped in the Tora Bora Mountains. Iran provided them with residence papers, identification documents, the bureaucratic infrastructure to live semi-openly. The deal had conditions, of course. Al-Qaeda members couldn't plot operations from Iranian soil. They couldn't recruit inside Iran. They had to keep a low profile, maintain deniability, stay quiet. In exchange, Iran gave them sanctuary, allowed them to communicate with Al-Qaeda's remaining networks, let them travel through Iranian territory to reach other destinations. For Iran, hosting Al-Qaeda leadership was strategic leverage. It gave Tehran a card to play against the West, a way to exert pressure when needed, an insurance policy against Al-Qaeda attacks inside Iran. The arrangement was purely transactional, built on mutual animosity toward America rather than any genuine alliance. Abdullah Ahmed Abdullah arrived in Iran in 2003, settling initially in Baluchistan province near the Pakistani border. Iranian intelligence detained him and other Al-Qaeda leaders, placed them under house arrest. The conditions were restrictive at first: monitored movements, limited communication, tight IRGC surveillance. Several Al-Qaeda members chafed under these restrictions, organized protests. Some even went on hunger strikes. But over time, the arrangement loosened. In March 2015, Iran released Abdullah and 4 other senior Al-Qaeda leaders in a prisoner exchange. Al-Qaeda had kidnapped an Iranian diplomat, Nur Ahmad Nikbacht, in Yemen. The trade, 5 Al-Qaeda leaders for 1 Iranian diplomat. After his release, Abdullah moved to Tehran, settling in the upscale Pastaran neighborhood. And here's where the story gets truly remarkable. He wasn't hidden in some underground bunker or secure facility. He lived semi-openly, owned a car, moved through the city with his family. IRGC monitored him, certainly, but he had freedom of movement that would have been unthinkable for a most wanted terrorist in almost any other country. Abdullah married a daughter of Ahmad Salama Mabruk, another senior Egyptian Islamic Jihad member. They had 3 daughters together. One of those daughters, Maryam, married Hamza bin Laden, Osama's son, in a ceremony that took place inside Iran. The wedding was filmed, footage later recovered from bin Laden's Abbottabad compound and released by the CIA in 2017. Hamza was being groomed as Al-Qaeda's next-generation leader, positioned to carry on his father's legacy. The marriage connected 2 of Al-Qaeda's most important families, binding the organization's Egyptian and Saudi factions. When U.S. forces killed Hamza in a counterterrorism operation somewhere along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, Maryam became his widow. And intelligence reports indicated she wasn't just grieving in quiet. She was taking on operational responsibilities herself, involved in Al-Qaeda's internal communications infrastructure, mediating between factions. The organization was grooming her for leadership, leveraging both her family connections and her operational skills. So when Abdullah drove through Tehran on that August evening in 2020, his daughter Maryam beside him, both of them were high-value targets. Both were central to Al-Qaeda's future. Both carried institutional knowledge and family connections that made them irreplaceable. And both died in those 8 seconds on Pasteran Avenue. The question that haunted intelligence analysts for years was simple. How do you kill someone who lives under Iranian protection in the heart of Tehran? Abdullah wasn't hiding in the Afghan mountains or the Pakistani tribal areas where drone strikes could reach him. He was in one of the most surveilled cities on earth, monitored by the Revolutionary Guards, protected by a regime that had every incentive to keep him alive as leverage. The answer came from an organization that had been perfecting urban assassination techniques in Tehran for nearly a decade, Mossad's Kidon unit. Kidon means bayonet in Hebrew, though the unit is informally known as the tip of the spear. It operates within Mossad's Caesarea division, handles the agency's most sensitive targeted killings, the operations that require surgical precision and absolute deniability. Kidon operatives are recruited from Israel's Special Forces units, undergo years of additional training in weapons, explosives, surveillance, escape, and evasion. They excel at moving through hostile territory, blending into foreign cities, executing kills, and vanishing before local security forces can respond. And between 2010 and 2012, Kidon operatives perfected their craft on the streets of Tehran, targeting Iranian nuclear scientists. The signature method was always the same: 2 operatives on a motorcycle, the driver navigating traffic while the shooter delivered the kill. Sometimes they used suppressed pistols. Sometimes they attached magnetic bombs to the target's vehicle. The technique was efficient, mobile, difficult to counter. In congested city traffic, a motorcycle could weave through cars, approach from any angle, escape through routes that cars couldn't follow. January 12, 2010. Masoud Ali Mohammadi, a physics professor at the University of Tehran, was killed by a remote-controlled bomb attached to a motorcycle parked near his home. November 29, 2010. 2 assassins on motorcycles killed nuclear scientist Majid Shahriari by detonating a bomb on his car door while he drove through Tehran. July 23, 2011. Dariush Rezainajad, a postgraduate electrical engineering student working at a national security research facility, was shot and killed by motorcyclists outside his home. January 11, 2012. Professor Mostafa Ahmadi Roshan, a nuclear scientist working at the Natanz enrichment facility, died when a motorcyclist attached a magnetic bomb to his car near a university in northern Tehran. Each assassination followed the same pattern: detailed surveillance to establish the target's routine, precise timing to strike when the target was most vulnerable, rapid escape through pre-planned routes, and in every case, the assassins vanished without trace, leaving Iranian security forces to investigate attacks they couldn't prevent and perpetrators they couldn't identify. Western intelligence officials later confirmed what everyone suspected: these were Mossad operations, carried out by Kidon teams operating deep inside Iran. The motorcycle assassinations became Mossad's calling card, a signature so distinctive that when similar attacks occurred, analysts immediately suspected Israeli involvement. The operations required extensive preparation. Mossad maintained safe houses in Tehran, infrastructure that dated back to the Shah's era when Israel and Iran had close intelligence ties. These safe houses provided staging areas for operatives, secure locations to store weapons and equipment, surveillance posts to monitor targets. Kidon teams spent months inside Iran, building the target's pattern of life, identifying vulnerabilities, planning escape routes, coordinating with handlers outside the country. The assassins themselves were often recruited from local populations: Iranians with grievances against the regime, dual nationals with access and language skills, ethnic minorities willing to work with Israeli intelligence. In one case, that later became public, an Iranian kickboxer named Majid Jamali Fashi confessed to assassinating a nuclear scientist after receiving training in Tel Aviv and payment of $120,000 from Mossad. He was tried, convicted, and executed by Iran in 2012, though Western intelligence officials confirmed his confession was genuine. The motorcycle method had clear advantages. Speed and mobility allowed operatives to approach from any direction and escape through multiple routes. The noise of city traffic masked suppressed gunshots. Motorcycles could navigate Tehran's congested streets faster than pursuing vehicles. And the technique was modular. It could be adapted for pistol shootings, magnetic bombs, or remote detonations depending on the tactical requirements. By 2013, diplomatic pressure from the United States convinced Israel to halt the assassination campaign against Iranian nuclear scientists. The Obama administration was attempting to negotiate restrictions on Iran's nuclear program, and the killings complicated those efforts. Mossad agreed to stand down, shifting focus to other methods of disrupting Iran's nuclear ambitions, including the Stuxnet cyber attack that damaged centrifuges at Natanz. But the operational infrastructure remained in place: the safe houses, the local assets, the surveillance networks, the institutional knowledge of how to operate in Tehran. When the opportunity came to eliminate Abdullah Ahmed Abdullah 7 years later, Mossad had everything it needed to execute the mission. The intelligence cooperation between CIA and Mossad on this operation represented something unprecedented. The United States had been tracking Abdullah for years, monitoring his movements through signals intelligence and human sources inside Iran. American analysts knew he lived in Tehran, knew his approximate location, had built profiles of his daily routines, but the U.S. couldn't act directly. American operatives conducting an assassination inside Iran would have triggered a major diplomatic crisis, potentially even military retaliation. The political cost was too high. Israel had no such constraints. Israel and Iran were already locked in a shadow war, conducting covert operations against each other across the Middle East. Mossad had the capability, the experience, and the willingness to strike inside Tehran. And Abdullah Ahmed Abdullah wasn't just an American target. He was implicated in the 2002 suicide bombing of the Paradise Hotel in Mombasa, Kenya, which killed 3 Israelis. Israeli intelligence believed Abdullah was planning new attacks against Israeli and Jewish targets worldwide. Both countries had reasons to want him dead. So the CIA provided the intelligence, and Mossad provided the operation. The surveillance began at least a year before the assassination. Israeli intelligence officers inside Iran, some operating under diplomatic cover in third countries, others working through local assets, began tracking Abdullah's movements. They photographed his white Renault L90, documented his regular routes through the Pasdaran neighborhood, identified the times of day when he was most vulnerable. They mapped CCTV coverage in the area, looking for blind spots and gaps in surveillance. They studied traffic patterns, escape routes, the response times of local police and IRGC security forces. Abdullah's routine was predictable, which made him vulnerable. He drove the same routes, frequented the same locations, maintained regular schedules. IRGC monitored him certainly, but their surveillance was protective rather than hostile. They were watching for external threats, not preparing for an assassination attempt from professional operatives who'd been operating in Tehran for years. The decision to strike on August 7th was deliberate, symbolic, a message written in blood. 22 years exactly after the embassy bombings, Mossad wanted everyone, Al-Qaeda, Iran, the intelligence community, to understand that this wasn't random, wasn't opportunistic. This was accounting. This was justice for the 224 people killed in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam, delivered on the anniversary of their deaths. The final surveillance runs happened in the days before August 7th. Abdullah's routine held. He drove the same routes, made the same stops. The Kidon team confirmed the plan, verified the escape routes, checked their weapons. The motorcycle was stolen, plates removed, ready for disposal after the operation. The suppressed pistol was tested, reliable, accurate at close range. On August 6th, the CIA sent final authorization. Israeli command approved the operation. The team moved into position, waiting for the evening of August 7th, when Abdullah would drive home through the Pasdaran, when traffic would provide cover and chaos, when the anniversary would give the kill its full meaning. And the next evening, at 9 o'clock Tehran time, 2 figures on a red motorcycle followed a white Renault through the streets, closed the distance, pulled alongside, and fired 5 shots that ended Al-Qaeda's operational planning capability for the next 2 years. The motorcycle vanished into Tehran's traffic. The assassins reached their safe house, disposed of the weapons and motorcycle, changed clothes, assumed different identities. Within hours, they'd left Tehran through routes established years earlier. Iranian authorities never identified them, never came close to arresting them. The operation was clean, professional, executed with the precision that comes from extensive training and institutional experience. But for Iran, the real nightmare was just beginning. Because in 3 months, when the truth emerged, the world would know that Mossad had operated freely in their capital, killed one of their protected assets, and escaped without consequence. The counterintelligence failure was total, humiliating, impossible to hide. November 13th, 2020. 3 months and 6 days after the assassination, New York Times journalist Adam Goldman published a detailed account of the killing, citing multiple intelligence officials who confirmed the victim's identity and the Israeli role. The article revealed that Abdullah Ahmed Abdullah, also known as Abu Muhammad al-Masri, was killed by Israeli Mossad operatives at the behest of the United States. It described the motorcycle attack, the suppressed pistol, the death of both Abdullah and his daughter, Maryam. The revelation shattered Iran's cover story. Habib Daoud, the fictional Lebanese history professor, disappeared from the narrative. The truth was now public. Al-Qaeda's number 2 had been living in Tehran under IRGC protection, and Israeli assassins had killed him with apparent ease. Iran's response was immediate and predictable. Complete denial. Foreign Ministry spokesman Saeed Khatibzadeh called the reports fabricated lies, Hollywood-style scenarios created by Washington and Tel Aviv to damage Iran's reputation. He insisted that no Al-Qaeda leaders lived in Iran, that the entire story was Western propaganda designed to paint Iran as a state sponsor of terrorism. The media, he said, shouldn't be a platform for spreading false information. But the denial convinced no one. Intelligence officials from multiple countries confirmed the story's accuracy. Western governments had been tracking Abdullah for years, knew exactly where he lived, had watched the Iranian sanctuary arrangement evolve. The only surprise was that the assassination took 3 months to become public knowledge. For Iran, the exposure created multiple crises simultaneously. First, it confirmed what Western intelligence agencies had been saying for years. Iran provided safe haven to Al-Qaeda's core leadership. The regime couldn't claim ignorance or plausible deniability. Abdullah had lived openly in Tehran since 2015, moved freely through the city, owned property, maintained family connections. IRGC knew exactly who he was and where he lived. Second, it revealed a catastrophic counterintelligence failure. Mossad operatives had conducted extensive surveillance inside Tehran, planned and executed an assassination, and escaped without Iranian security forces detecting or preventing the operation. The same organization that had killed Iranian nuclear scientists between 2010 and 2012 had returned, used the same signature method, and proven that Iranian security improvements over the intervening years meant nothing. Third, it exposed Iran's cynical manipulation of Al-Qaeda as a strategic asset. The regime couldn't claim to be fighting terrorism while simultaneously hosting the architects of mass casualty attacks against civilians. The arrangement revealed Iran's priorities. Keeping Al-Qaeda leadership as leverage against the West mattered more than any principle about opposing terrorism or protecting civilian lives. The political timing of the revelation added another layer of significance. The story broke just days after Joe Biden won the U.S. presidential election. Israeli intelligence sources later indicated that the leak was deliberate, timed to send a message to the incoming administration. Biden had signaled his intention to rejoin the Iran nuclear deal, to pursue diplomatic engagement with Tehran. Israel wanted to remind the new president about Iran's behavior, wanted to demonstrate that the regime provided sanctuary to America's enemies wanted to complicate any diplomatic rapprochement. The message was clear. This is the government you want to negotiate with. This is the regime that protected the mastermind of the embassy bombings while you were vice president during the Obama administration. This is the strategic partner you're considering for a nuclear diplomacy. For Al-Qaeda, the assassination represented a devastating operational loss. Abdullah wasn't just the number 2 in name. He was the organization's institutional memory, its connection to the operational successes of the 1990s and early 2000s. He'd trained the generation of militants who carried out the embassy bombings, the USS Cole attack, September 11th. He understood network building, operational security, how to move money and fighters across borders. His experience was irreplaceable. Western intelligence agencies tracking Al-Qaeda's communications saw the impact immediately. Internal intercepts showed confusion, organizational chaos, debates about succession and leadership. Saif al-Adel, another Egyptian veteran who'd also been living in Iran, was technically the next in line. But al-Adel stayed silent, didn't claim leadership, didn't issue the statements that would normally follow such a senior loss. The organizational paralysis suggested that Abdullah's death created problems Al-Qaeda couldn't easily solve. Over the following 2 years, intelligence assessments noted a significant decline in Al-Qaeda's external attack planning capabilities. The organization's regional affiliates, Al-Shabaab in East Africa, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, continued operating, but the core leadership's ability to coordinate and direct sophisticated international operations diminished. Abdullah's expertise in external operations, his networks and relationships couldn't be quickly replaced. His death also eliminated a crucial bridge between Al-Qaeda's old guard and new generation. Mariam's death alongside her father severed the connection to the bin Laden family, removed a potential future leader who carried legitimacy through both family ties and operational experience. The next generation of Al-Qaeda leadership would be weaker, less connected, less capable. But perhaps the most significant impact was symbolic. Abdullah had survived everything: the Soviet war in Afghanistan, the rise and fall of Al-Qaeda's Afghan sanctuary, the post-9/11 manhunts, the drone campaigns in Pakistan and Yemen, 2 decades of being hunted by the world's most sophisticated intelligence agencies. He'd outlived Osama bin Laden. He'd negotiated sanctuary with Iran and believed that made him untouchable. He'd lived openly for 5 years in Tehran, protected by the regime, monitored by IRGC, confident in his safety. And then, on the anniversary of his greatest crime, 2 operatives on a motorcycle proved that no sanctuary could protect him. The message to Al-Qaeda's remaining leadership was unmistakable. You're never safe. Your deals with state sponsors mean nothing. Distance doesn't protect you. Time doesn't diminish our memory. We will find you and we will kill you. And the anniversary of your crimes will be the day you die. I have to pause here and ask you something. If you were in Iran's position after this assassination, knowing that Israeli operatives had moved freely through your capital, killed a protected asset, and escaped without trace, would you admit the truth and face the international humiliation? Or would you maintain the cover story and hope the lie protects your reputation? Both choices reveal catastrophic failure. Both expose your counterintelligence weakness. What's the right decision when there are no good options? When the truth and the lie both destroy your credibility? Drop your answer in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious how you'd navigate that impossible situation, because what Iran decided in those first hours after the assassination shaped everything that followed. Here's what happened next. Iran chose the lie initially, then chose silence when the lie collapsed. The regime never formally acknowledged Abdullah's presence or his death. Government officials never confirmed or denied the New York Times reporting. The strategy was simple: refuse to engage, let the story fade from headlines, rebuild counterintelligence capabilities in private, avoid giving the operation more significance through official acknowledgement. But internally, the response was brutal. IRGC counterintelligence underwent a complete overhaul. Officers responsible for monitoring Abdullah were reassigned, possibly arrested. The security services launched internal investigations to identify how Mossad maintained operational infrastructure inside Tehran, how surveillance was conducted without detection, where the intelligence leaks originated. Analysts compared the al-Masri assassination to the nuclear scientist killings, looking for patterns, common vulnerabilities, systematic failures. Iranian intelligence also began hunting for Mossad's local assets, the Iranians and dual nationals who'd provided surveillance support, safe houses, logistics. Several arrests were reported in Iranian media over the following months. Individuals accused of spying for Israel. Some were probably genuine Mossad assets. Others were likely scapegoats, sacrificed to demonstrate that Iranian security forces were taking action even if they hadn't actually identified the assassination team. The hunt extended beyond Iran's borders. Intelligence services in countries with significant Iranian expatriate populations, particularly Azerbaijan, Turkey, and various European nations, received requests for information about Iranian dissidents, opposition groups, anyone with potential ties to Israeli intelligence. Iran suspected that some surveillance had been conducted by operatives operating from outside the country, using Iranian assets for the actual execution. But the fundamental vulnerability remained unchanged. Mossad had proven, twice now, first with the nuclear scientists and now with Abdullah, that it could operate inside Tehran, conduct extensive surveillance, execute targeted killings, and escape without capture. The counterintelligence reforms might make future operations more difficult, but they couldn't eliminate the core problem. Israel had infrastructure, experience, and institutional knowledge that gave it operational capabilities inside Iran that few other intelligence agencies could match. For the relationship between Iran and Al-Qaeda, the assassination introduced new tensions into an already complicated arrangement. Al-Qaeda's leadership blamed Iran for failing to protect Abdullah, argued that the regime's security guarantees meant nothing. Some within the organization wanted to retaliate, to strike Iranian interests, to break the deal that had kept them from attacking inside Iran. But pragmatism prevailed. Al-Qaeda still needed Iranian sanctuary. Other senior leaders, including Saif al-Adel, remained in Iran with their families. Breaking the arrangement meant losing their last remaining safe haven, forcing them to relocate to even more dangerous locations where American drones could reach them. The organization's survival depended on maintaining the Iranian connection, however tenuous and distrustful it had become. Iran, meanwhile, calculated that keeping Al-Qaeda's remaining leadership under its control still provided valuable leverage. The arrangement allowed Iranian intelligence to monitor Al-Qaeda's communications, understand the organization's plans and capabilities, maintain influence over its operations. Releasing them or forcing them to leave would diminish Iran's ability to use Al-Qaeda as a strategic card against Western interests. So, the uneasy relationship continued. Al-Qaeda's leaders remained in Iran, their movements monitored, their communications surveilled, their activities restricted by the same conditions that had governed Abdullah's presence. Neither side trusted the other. Both sides gained enough from the arrangement to maintain it, despite the suspicion and occasional hostility. If you've made it this far, thank you for taking this journey through one of the most significant covert operations in recent intelligence history. This channel is dedicated to bringing you real spy stories every single day. Operations that shaped history, tradecraft that changed the game, the human cost behind every mission. These aren't Hollywood inventions. These are actual assassinations, real intelligence failures, genuine counterterrorism operations conducted by the world's most sophisticated agencies. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. Hit that button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode, because we've got stories coming about Cold War betrayals, Mossad operations across the Middle East, CIA covert action programs, and the targeted killings that eliminated terrorist leaders from Beirut to Baghdad. But this story isn't quite over yet. There's one final element that puts the entire operation into context: that explains why this assassination mattered beyond just eliminating one terrorist leader. So, what do you think? Was the operation justified? Did the symbolic timing on the anniversary add meaning, or just theatricality? Could Iran have prevented it with better security, or was Abdullah vulnerable the moment he agreed to live openly in Tehran? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I love hearing your perspectives on these intelligence operations and the moral questions they raise. The assassination of Abdullah Ahmed Abdullah eliminated Al-Qaeda's most experienced operational planner, exposed Iran's cynical relationship with Sunni jihadists, and demonstrated Israel's ability to strike at will inside adversary capitals. But its significance extends beyond those immediate tactical and strategic effects. The operation represented something broader, the continuation of a shadow war between Israel and Iran that's been escalating for decades. The motorcycle assassination in 2020, connected directly to the nuclear scientist killings of 2010 to 2012, showed that Mossad's operational capabilities inside Iran hadn't diminished despite Iranian security improvements. Every successful Israeli operation inside Tehran reinforces the message that Iranian sovereignty means nothing when Israel decides to act, that IRGC surveillance and security measures can't prevent Mossad from executing its missions. For the families of the 224 people killed in the Nairobi and Dar es Salaam embassy bombings, the anniversary killing carried profound meaning. 22 years they'd waited for some form of accountability. Some of the perpetrators had been captured and tried in American courts, sentenced to life in prison. Others had been killed in drone strikes or special operations raids. But Abdullah, the operational architect who'd planned the entire operation, had remained beyond reach, protected by Iranian sanctuary, living semi-openly while his victims' families grieved. The timing of his death on August 7th wasn't accidental or coincidental. The operatives who planned the mission, the intelligence officers who approved it, the policymakers who gave final authorization, they all understood the symbolism. Justice delayed isn't justice denied, not when the accountancy finally arrives on the anniversary of the original crime. The calendar itself became part of the operation's message, a reminder that some debts transcend time and borders. For the intelligence community, the operation confirmed several important realities about covert action in the 21st century. First, that targeted killings remain viable tools for eliminating terrorist leaders even when they're protected by hostile state sponsors. Second, that international cooperation between intelligence agencies can overcome obstacles that individual services can't address alone. The CIA couldn't strike inside Tehran, but Mossad could, and the partnership achieved what neither could do independently. Third, that operational security and tradecraft still matter more than technology. The assassination succeeded because of careful surveillance, precise timing, and professional execution, not because of sophisticated weapons or advanced technology. The operation also revealed the limits of state-sponsored sanctuary. Iran offered Abdullah protection, monitored his movements, provided security through IRGC surveillance. But none of that prevented Mossad from killing him. The regime's protection became meaningless the moment Israeli operatives decided to act. The lesson for other terrorist leaders considering sanctuary in Iran or similar arrangements with state sponsors: your host's guarantees won't save you if an intelligence agency with Mossad's capabilities decides you're worth killing. Al-Qaeda learned this lesson the hard way. The organization lost its second-in-command, its most experienced operations planner, and a crucial link between its founding generation and future leadership. The operational impact was immediate and lasting. Western intelligence assessments documented a significant decline in Al-Qaeda's external attack planning capabilities in the years following Abdullah's death. The organization couldn't quickly replace his institutional knowledge, his networks, his operational experience. But Al-Qaeda also learned something about Iran's reliability as a state sponsor. Iranian protection had limits. Iranian security had vulnerabilities. The sanctuary came with restrictions that prevented Al-Qaeda from operating freely. And when those restrictions failed to prevent external attacks, Iran offered no recourse, no retaliation, no consequences for the assassins. Al-Qaeda's leadership remained in Iran after Abdullah's death because they had no better options, not because they trusted the regime to protect them. For Iran, the assassination inflicted reputational damage that continues to affect its international standing. The revelation that Al-Qaeda's number 2 lived openly in Tehran for 5 years, that he was killed by Israeli operatives who escaped without consequence, that the regime lied about his identity and never admitted the truth. All of this confirmed Western accusations about Iran's role in supporting terrorism. The regime's claims to be fighting terrorism, to be opposing Al-Qaeda and similar groups, lost credibility when Abdullah's presence became public knowledge. The counterintelligence failure was equally damaging. Iran positions itself as a major regional power with sophisticated security services and advanced intelligence capabilities. The assassination demonstrated that Mossad could penetrate Tehran's security, conduct extended surveillance operations, execute targeted killings, and escape detection. The failure echoed the nuclear scientist assassinations of the previous decade, suggested that Iran's security services hadn't learned from past mistakes, couldn't protect high-value assets even when they knew those assets were targets. Iranian officials recognized the severity of the failure. The counterintelligence overhaul that followed the assassination was comprehensive, involving reforms across IRGC intelligence, Ministry of Intelligence, and internal security services. The regime reportedly reached out to Russia and China for assistance in improving counterintelligence tradecraft, acknowledging that its own capabilities were insufficient to prevent Israeli operations. But the structural problem remains. Iran's security services are hampered by corruption, internal politics, competing bureaucracies that don't share information effectively. The IRGC and Ministry of Intelligence often work at cross purposes, protecting their own organizational interests rather than coordinating on national security. This institutional dysfunction creates vulnerabilities that professional intelligence services like Mossad can exploit. The assassination also occurred at a specific moment in Middle Eastern geopolitics that gave it additional significance. In 2020, several Arab states were normalizing relations with Israel through the Abraham Accords. The Trump administration had withdrawn from the Iran nuclear deal and imposed maximum pressure sanctions on Tehran. Iran's regional influence was being challenged simultaneously by Israel, the Gulf states, and the United States. The killing of Abdullah in Tehran sent a message to all those actors about Israel's capabilities and willingness to strike inside Iran. The operation's aftermath continues to shape intelligence cooperation between the United States and Israel. The successful assassination demonstrated that joint operations can achieve strategic objectives that individual services can't accomplish alone. CIA provided intelligence and targeting information. Mossad provided operational capabilities and local infrastructure. The partnership model proved effective, likely encouraging similar cooperation on future operations. The white Renault sat at the intersection that August evening, windows shattered, 2 bodies slumped inside, 5 shell casings on the pavement marking where justice had arrived 22 years late. The motorcycle was already gone, vanished into Tehran's sprawl. By morning, Iran would construct its cover story. By November, the truth would shatter that fiction. And for the families of 224 victims in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam, something resembling closure. Not the closure that comes from healing, but the closure that comes from knowing the accountant finally paid his debt. Abdullah Ahmed Abdullah spent 22 years running. He outlived Osama bin Laden, survived the drone wars, negotiated sanctuary with one of America's greatest adversaries. He thought Iranian protection made him untouchable, believed the deal would shield him indefinitely. And on the anniversary of his greatest crime, on a warm evening in a city where he'd lived for years without fear, 2 operatives on a motorcycle proved that some debts transcend borders. that some crimes demand accounting no matter how much time passes. The operation cost 5 bullets and 8 seconds. The message cost Iran its credibility, cost Al-Qaeda its operations planner, cost Abdullah his life. And somewhere in Tel Aviv and Langley, analysts filed the mission report, knowing they'd delivered something the victims' families had waited 2 decades to receive. Not closure, but accounting. And in the shadow world of intelligence and covert action, sometimes that's the only justice available.